Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Day 38 Talking Horses, a special edition of Talking Horses. The great, the legendary Andy Beyer joining me. This is your first appearance since 2019. Welcome back.
The COVID really screwed up my life history at Saratoga.
You and a lot of other people as well, but it's great to have you back. Andy, as some of you, many of you may know, has often made the appearance on Jockey Club Gold Cup Day. Are you ready? Fully ready?
I am ready. I've been studying since the wee hours of Thursday morning.
I was very impressed that you knew immediately that the time of a sales workout, so you really have done your homework.
I'm sure that in a million years I could never actually assess the quality of it, but you fake it very well.
I fake it. Well, I have watched so many of them. Yes. At some point, you start to learn things. I try to listen to Maggie and Acacia. They're a little better, and right. I try to listen to what they have to say. But I find it. It's funny about the sales works. I understand a lot of people don't care about them, which is perfectly fine, and they may have very valid reasons. My general feeling is, no information is bad. Right. If somebody chooses to dismiss it, they should dismiss it. Right. Occasionally it works, and we can talk about it. When it doesn't work, we ignore it. You need to head over to Naira Bets before we get started and use the promo code TOGA200. Sign up. We'll give you a $200 deposit match. Sign up. We want Epicenter. Essential Qualities yesterday's news. We have a bankroll builder, bet 50 to win on the Jockey Club Gold Cup. And you get $20 for your bankroll for Belmont at the Big A, which starts on September 15th. And finally, last but not least, we will be on from 12:30 to 5 on FS2, and then 6 to 7 to finish things up. 5 to 6, NBC will be showing two or three races. I'm not exactly sure the timing on that, but they will be on from 5 to 6, covering the Jockey Club and I believe the Flower Bowl as well. Race number 1, a mile and a 16th on the turf. We'll start with the horse you have on top, who's the one who has experience, and that's Please Baby. And I do think that Please Baby ran fairly well last time. My problem is twofold. The race did collapse, and this horse ran fine. Rudy Rodriguez, obviously, is one of the big stories of the meet, now 2 for over 80.
Right. When I looked at this race initially, and I thought, a Rudy Rodriguez horse has the best-looking form in the race, I said, this is an opportunity because we'll automatically throw out a guy with the 2% winners for the meeting and look for somebody hidden. So I scoured this race, looked at every pedigree, every possible trainer stat, and couldn't come up with anything. You would think that Todd Pletcher, first-time starter, would be sort of the default backup.
The 3 Ari Gold.
His stats with first-time starters on the turf going long are not good. You don't want him either. So I just feel that I was left with Please Baby, as you said. He ran well last time. He came through, traffic in the stretch like a pro. If it weren't for Rudy's record, you would call him a standout. But I am nevertheless left with him, and we're going to start the day with a winner, I think.
I'm a little skeptical of this horse. I think that race came apart, and he did run fine. The thing with Todd, and I get that, because in general, Todd runs a lot of horses on the turf because they just, like a lot of trainers, they haven't shown him a lot, and Todd is a trainer that obviously has had enormous success in the dirt. He's really the counterpart, or Chad Brown, you could say, is the counterpart to him, as Todd's been around much longer. Having said that, Annapolis, we're going to see in the stake later today, a powerful winner of his debut at Saratoga. Todd has debuted good turf horses at Saratoga. The numbers aren't good. This horse supposedly has been doing okay, and I have a feeling they're going to like this horse, and I'm scared of him. But I don't disagree. I put him third. The horse I put on top, Read On, I understand Dale Romans left him in last week so he could get into this race. Because if he had scratched last time, I'm assuming he would have lost any of his sort of stars for the race and probably wouldn't have got in. And what I'm going to tell you, this horse, the Dam did win the turf. She wasn't that good, but she's produced 2 horses that won the turf that were fair. I have a friend who's extremely sharp with looking for horses first time in the turf that 3 weeks ago said to me, we have to bet this horse when he runs in the turf.
No kidding.
So I'm a bit stealing from a friend whose opinion I respect a great deal, and as you know, I don't respect anybody. What about Shug's horse, General Jim? I know he's an into mischief, but this Dam was a multiple winner in the turf. She's produced 2 horses around the turf that didn't do much running. But doesn't it feel like this could be a turf horse based on pedigree?
You know, Into Mischief's record as a sire is largely devoid of turf runners. You think of him, you know, as an international superstar, but I mean, all the good ones are, you know, like Life is Good and Gamine. They're dirt horses, and so I was wary of him for that reason, and I'll stick with Rudy and his 2% record.
Is there something on Scramble, or are you just betting a Glen Eagles? First foal from this one, the 10. Scramble, you have second. Do you have something you want to share on this horse?
Just that, you know, Glen Eagles was a great miler in Europe. Glen Eagles, you know, sired Highland Chief, who won the Man of War. I've had a lifetime of respect for Barclay Tagg. I think he's, you know, a superior trainer, doing just about anything. So this was.
This is a Maryland suck-up, basically.
Maryland's, well, it's an international suck-up.
International and Maryland, you get them both in the same horse. Race number 2. You know, if there's a good firster in race number 2, it's obviously going to elude us because we've taken horses with experience. You've got them 1, 2, 4. I've got them 1, 2, 3. And we'll take a look at the Full Moon Madness Powerful race last time, and I'm not going to argue that Powerful ran the better race. Full Moon Madness did break a length slowly, though, and the reason I put Full Moon Madness on top, A, is the horse is going to be a much better price, and I just feel like Michelle Nevin is a trainer whose horses could need a race, whereas when Steve Asmussen is a first-time starter at 2-1, they've got them ready to roll. It's not to say that the horse can't improve, and he wins with second-time starters. But I'm taking this horse to improve more at a better price.
Actually, I had a different view. I mean, I've paid a lot of attention to Asmussen in recent years because he, you know, I pay attention to Oaklawn Park, and he's, you know, the big force down there. And his horses, of almost any type, take time to reach their peak. He doesn't rev anybody up early.
Well, that's not fair. I mean, he's one with a lot of first-time stars that were very good at Saratoga over the years.
His statistics,
they're better overall with second-time stars, but when they're bet at Saratoga, they run. You know what I mean?
Well, overall, he wins about 20% of everything. First-time starters, 16%. Second-time starters, 22%. So seeing this horse who ran a 75 in his debut, which could well be good enough to win here, I would expect him to improve a little bit.
I agree with you in a broad sense, but think about the race yesterday, the maiden race that was won by the Phil Serpy horse, the 10 horse.
Yeah.
Steve's horse was the 5. That horse has been bet heavily first time, ran a very credible second, came back and didn't run particularly well. I feel with Steve, when they're supposed to win at Saratoga first time out, I don't expect him to take that big step forward. I think he gets him ready to win first time at Saratoga, much more than other tracks.
Okay, well, we'll see today.
I mean, I'm not going to be surprised when he wins. He's the horse to beat. I'm not really against him. The 8 upgrade, you know, I watched the 8 upgrades debut. He broke about a half slow, and you know, this horse was ridden like every step of the way by Luis Saez.
Okay.
And maybe he's a horse that improves second time. He comes out of a live race. We saw the second place finisher improve 12 buyer points in his next start for Wayne Lucas. Blazing Sevens could win the Hopeful here on Monday. I just feel like maybe he's a work in progress, but I'm a little skeptical of him. And he's got a lot of improving to do from a big standpoint. But you know what? Sometimes these Todd second-time stars, they'll have a lot more speed the second time. I won't be surprised if he does. Anybody else?
Nope.
All right. Race number 3. Race number 3, I thought was a real skull buster.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to argue that the number 6, Up to the Mark, we both have second, is kind of the horse to beat. Todd's numbers with second-time starters off maiden wins are solid. They're high win percentage, 28 to 32, depending on how you look. None of the ROIs are that good because they're all short prices. What do you do with a horse that runs a big fig first time out and a sloppy track is a huge favorite? Maybe he's just a good horse and he's going to win second time, but I'm a little skeptical.
This race had a lot of interesting elements for me as a fig maker because there are a lot of ambiguities here, and you know, periodically you will cite figures that
nobody is out of my scope
with the tone of disbelief, and I don't mind it because you know, when we make our figures, you know, we we're often skeptical of them too. We know the ones that are ambiguous, and the Up to the Mark and No Burn both come out of a day, July 21st. That was a tough day to make figures. It rained before the first race. The track changed in our judgment after the first race. I thought we kind of downgraded the number on Up to the Mark, and I still think that 88 is a little high. Whereas No Burn got a 96, and that number has been fully confirmed. I mean, the third and fourth place finishers in that field, Perceived in this race was one of them, both came back and duplicated their figure. So I know the 96 is solid. I'm not sure about Up to the Mark. And then we've got Strong Quality.
We'll get him. I want to say about No Burn. I don't have a problem with the fig. But do you think it's a number that you can reasonably expect him to run back? That's my problem.
Well, he's run figures of 90 and 93, and now a 96. It's not like it's out of left field.
I keep waiting for his form to fall apart, and it doesn't. And I have to admit it. But I'm just so skeptical. He was given up by Rob Atras for $12,000, and I know he's held it. But I can't. I hear you. And he's clearly fast enough, and maybe he'll be a bigger price because he looks cheap. And maybe it's just a fig situation, but I am extremely dubious of this horse, especially on a dry track today. Now, Strong Quality, we'll show his replay last time. If you take the 91 at face value, I'm going to show a trainer stat after this that suggests there's a real reason to think he can improve on it. The problem is it's almost 20 points higher than his prior fig, and it seems to be a fig that just doesn't make sense.
I would agree with you to that on a number of levels. Both the second and third place finishers look like this too. They both improved, out of left field. But one of the things that we look at, when we're trying to assess the figure,
we need to pick this up for a while.
Is how. What did the whole day look like? Were there, did the track seem to be changing? Were there a lot of aberrations? Or was it just a consistent day from start to finish? And on that day at the fairgrounds, we had one track variant the whole day. It fit for all the horses. And at the Strong Quality race, the fourth, fifth, and sixth place finishers all came back to win. So I think the figure is legitimate. Still didn't pick this horse. It's been, 5 months.
Well, that's the thing. I like this stat. When a horse is off for roughly 6 months, and it's been 5.5 months for this horse, I like how do trainers do when they're coming back, not a 6-month layoff, but sort of right smack dab in the middle. That's an amazing stat. These horses come back for Mark Casse on the dirt, keep in mind. So they're not horses running on synthetic up in Canada. And that's I know it's not a huge sample size, but it's pretty good. I mean, overall, he's got good numbers off these kind of layoffs. In routes, they come back and run well. And listen, this is a horse, when I first looked at the race, I was crying to bet against because of skepticism about the fig. But I don't know, man. This horse working well. Have you looked at workout reports on this horse? I see he has fast works.
Yes. I mean, he got a B rating with a positive comment. He's okay. And also Up to the Mark. Got a very strong.
I'm scared of Up to the Mark. I mean, I think you are too. I mean, he could be a very good horse.
Yes.
And I know that you're particularly sad to see a $4.1 million Godolphin horse that will be relegated to a big price in here. I'm surprised you didn't pick him out of sympathy. The one, Aussie Pride, who did run okay two back, but I'm not sure he's good enough.
The Sheik must be so disappointed.
You think he's watching Talking Horses? He's a big fan of yours since your lovely hit piece on him a number of years ago. Race number 4, the 2 Pequot scratched. Annapolis in race number 4, we'll take a look at him winning the Manila. And I think he just found a 1 3/16 last time, a little beyond his best scope. I mean, he's going to be 1 to 5 or 2 to 5, and he's just like a cinch on paper, right?
Well, it's nice of Saratoga to give us one manageable race where we're likely to pick the winner.
Well, I like Warlike Goddess later, too.
Oh, good.
Come up with that. I do want to ask you something about this. The timing error is on us. This is the lone ridiculous timing error. There is the one with the clock starting. Why haven't you timed this race yourself and come up with a fig for the Saratoga Derby?
There is an idiosyncrasy in our system that prevents us from entering a figure if there is no final time in. And so I don't know why Equibase, which is charged with...
So you have given this race a fig?
My estimate would be a 93 based on what what the horses had done previously, and I've got 93 right in red ink.
I'm curious. The only other fig in the same situation is Goodnight Olive. What fig? Do you remember what fig you gave her before she won the ballerina? I'm guessing about a 96 to 98.
I don't. I'd have to look.
So. I will say, go ahead. Do you have something else?
But just, there have been so many cases in the last year or two where, where racetracks have had timing issues. I mean, even in major high-quality races, and for nobody at NYRA or Equibase or the Jockey Club to say, gee, we should we should clock this race and publish a time. Well, it's a disgrace.
The thing, I agree, and I put it on us as well, and it particularly annoys me because there is a guy, Craig Milkowski, who is the greatest expert at timing these races, and all he's trying to do is get the most accurate time. And just as the Goodnight Olive race, he obviously said accurately, the timer started 3.8 seconds early. Just deduct 3.8 seconds from every fraction of the final time. This race, I'm fairly confident. Do we lose sound, guys?
Excuse me?
We're good, okay. The time for this race, I'm sure Craig has a time. Yeah. He has a figure for Timeform US. Can't we just use Craig's times? He's the guy.
Well, he makes, on suspicious cases, he makes figures that get passed on to Equibase, but nothing was done with a great
the Jockey Club
great
respects his opinion, and they listen to him.
I don't get.
I don't understand it, and I totally agree. I think it's a black mark that this is a Grade 1 race that we ran here, and we ran it here a month ago, and there's no time in the form, and that's on us as well. And I agree. I think it's a problem.
And I would say one other point, that as the industry has become more and more aware of speed figures, and breeders and owners, are look at the figures for
owners and bettors rely on them
for a
whether
gauge.
Your figs or anybody's figs.
For the industry not to be thinking about that in terms of their key customers' interests, it baffles me.
It's appalling. We're going to break after 6, by the way, guys, just so you know. I do want to look at the Jersey Derby, where Fuerteventura beat Celestial City. I will say that I think Celestial City has improved. And I don't want to dismiss the one Celestial City. I know that he lost this race to Fuerteventura, but you look at his next race, he was running against good older horses. And then last time out, he was probably a little closer than he most wanted to be. And Witt, who kind of had a perfect trip to run him down, this is at Jersey, but Witt, who had a perfect trip to run him down, came back and blasted a field last week in the Better Talk Now and improved his buyer figure 5 points. So I'm not sure that Celestial City is just filler in here. I think he's a legitimate competitor against Annapolis. I don't think he's impossible to win this race. Do you have a...
I wouldn't dispute that.
It's not as though Annapolis has this gigantic figure edge. That's all I'm saying. Celestial City is okay off his last couple races. I'm looking forward to race number 5 because I've taken sort of a crazy horse that I'm married to in here that I think we can make some money with. But I also think that the horses that are going to get bet in here, while they're not impossible, are highly dubious, including your top choice, Blinding Light of Wild Fourth. We'll look at his last race. I know he ran a big figure. Here's my problem. He was claimed by Jeffrey Englehart, who could do no wrong through April. And since then, he's won 1 race at Saratoga, an off-the-turf race, and his horses just aren't running.
I share your doubts about him. I put him on top. A lot of the published dope said you should. But there were 3 5.5 furlong sprints that
day. He ran this horse.
But his fractions were so much faster than the comparable races that I just am not sure I believe the data for that race. And the horse he beat, Super Quality, who gets a figure of 79 out of this race, had run a 66 the time before. I don't fully trust him, but there's not that much speed in the race, and so if
Well,
he
isn't the rail going to go in here, Drink the Wind? I mean, he has no choice.
well.
I know he has dirt speed, which may not be as fast as his sprint turf speed.
Well, if this horse goes 21-28 again, I
don't
think
disagree.
he's
This horse's
gonna be
last race
rolled.
was legit. That's why I even had him fourth. I don't think I put the stat up for Drink the Wind because it's barely a stat. But for what it's worth, Tom Morley is 3 for 6 with another hitting the board, including a huge priced winner, first-time turf off the claim. And, I mean, I'm scared to Drink the Wind because he's a more than ready. And he is pretty good. I'm going to use him in here. The horse that I don't like at all is Mr. Chairman. We'll take a look at his absolutely perfect trip win last. I mean, this is vintage Joel Rosario, and this is why Joel is the single greatest turf sprint rider in history. I mean, he sits on the rail, he comes out. I bet the second horse, so yes, I'm bitter. He was 580 to 1. He also came back and didn't run a step in his next start. Now, to be fair, the third place finisher did come back to win in that race and actually ran fairly well. But having said that, this horse cannot possibly get as lucky as he did last time, and this has to be a much better field. I want no part of this horse. He wins, I lose.
Why did you pick Hatch in this race?
Because I want to win money at this meet. And then you'll tell us why you like Starry, Starry Night. As far as Hatch, this horse has a turf pedigree. And you'll note that they tried to get this horse in the turf first time out, was scratched. And I was waiting to get him on the turf. Mike Maker ran on the turf 2 back. We got rained off. It's that July 21st day you talked about. Carlos Martin trained him and obviously decided that Mike Maker was onto something with him. So then he gets caught on that super, super gold rail track on the inner turf. He's 3 wide on the first turn and 2 to 3 or 4 wide on the second turn in a race that was 100% dominated by horses that saved ground almost the entire race and were forwardly placed in a ridiculously slow pace. Now he shows up in a turf sprint. I like these outside posts in turf sprints where it's a decent field, and you're right about the 4. He could absolutely win. I probably should have had him like 3rd in here or something, but I'm being wise guy. I'm not overly afraid of anybody, and this is a horse that I am married to giving a chance to because he had no chance in his turf debut.
I mean, do you have any qualms about 5.5 being too short for him?
You know me, I hate distance. Yeah, I do. No, I agree. I mean, it matters. It could be, and I don't love the rider in turf sprints. He tends to get lost in races, but he's too big a price to give up. You don't think Custom Bobbies is dangerous in here for Jose Cameo? I mean, his win 2 back was, I thought, legitimately good.
He was
and last time, not the best of rides or trips.
I mean, that field last time was like not very good. I mean, the winner.
I don't disagree. I thought his race 2 back was okay. What about Starry, Starry Night? That was going to be a big price.
There were. The August 10th race was a little hard to judge because there had been a mishap in the race, and so the
video's not available.
The videos were blocked out. Everybody was closing in that race. Starry, Starry Night, if you can believe the charts, had some trouble, but I used him over the other horses because on a go back, he's got some speed. He can be sitting with and within stalking distance of blinding light, where other horses like Montatham are just too slow for this circuit.
I made a nice bet on Montatham last time. Last time was the time. I just think there's too many new faces in this group. The reason I liked him last time was it was just a tired bunch. You know what I mean? Just a lot of horses we've seen, so I'm sort of against that group. An interesting race, race 5. Race number 6, we're back to the another 2-year-old. There's 3 divisions of this, something that was explained to me both of us last night. They've never split them 3 ways. I'm taking Champion's Dream. We'll take a look at his 2-year-old sales work. He worked in March. Reportedly, he's working very well. I thought he looked very good in this workout, and I'm going to get Danny Gargan home here with the firster Champion's Dream.
Well, I'm going with the other firster.
Well, there's a lot of firsters in here.
Cagliostro.
Okay.
Sherry DeVoe has...
Cherie
DeVoe has been doing very well at the meeting. A week ago, I mean, she won with the first-time starter, the Great Maybe, also by Upstart. The horse won by 8, with a figure of 82. I mean, she's got good overall stats with first-time starters.
I didn't love the sales work out of this horse.
Oh, yeah.
10 and a fifth.
Okay. 10 and a fifth.
This is a lot of money to have paid, given the damn side pedigree of this horse. I mean, it's just turf and it's bad. And I love the upstarts too. And David and Gordo, who's part owner of this horse, who I'm assuming was the bloodstock agent here, David has a pretty good record. He's involved in picking our favorite horse, Zenyatta. David's tremendous job picking out horses. And I agree. I mean, I left this horse out at my own peril. I respect Cherie. I feel like I got the money with the big maybe or the great maybe last week, but I'm scared of this horse.
And just as an aside, the Mike Welsh workout report in DRF, which I always consult in these races, even after after I had settled on Cherie, gave B+ works to both the 9 and the 10. So it could be.
I left this horse out, and I knew I shouldn't have. I feel like Mine Tap, the Todd Pletcher, who's a half to Carolina, and there were 3 runners in there. I feel like this is a horse that I read early in the meet, maybe when Dave Grenning was talking about Todd's 2-year-olds that they spoke of. Now, it's been a while, but I think that horse has to be considered dangerous, right?
Pletcher you always have to worry about, but the Tappets aren't necessarily that precocious first time out, and I just think the 10 has the look.
Okay, staying outside. We'll take a break. We will be back for the second half of the card.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
I got a text from Lafitte Pinkai, and he's Andy Beyer. I'm Andy Serling, and Saratoga Water is our sponsor, and we appreciate his support. Lafitte texted me to say, I tune in to watch Legends of the Game, and one of them picks Rudy, who's 2 for 80, and the other one picks a horse because his friend told him to bet on it. So we've lost Lafitte. Lafitte's just mad because he's going to have to dress as Mr. Met one of these days on television because of the Mets' destruction of the Dodgers this week. Race number 7 is a really, really interesting race. I think you'll agree. And we'll take a video look of your horse, Elite Power. And Bill Mott's got good numbers cutting horses back off wins. My concern with this horse is, aren't you worried he could end up too far back in this race going 6?
There were just a lot of things I didn't like. I mean, why are they going 6? I mean,
maybe he's doing so well and they needed to get a race into him,
Right, but it's,
it's weird.
They
I
had
agree.
2 months, and so now this is just sort of a last end of the meet, 6 furlongs. I don't get it, but the horse has the, has
he's good, this
solid
horse.
figures, and I took him, but with trepidation.
I found this to be an extremely tricky race. I mean, Amundsen ran well last time, but he is such a last time was the time horse. And I just feel like this field is deeper and tough. I'm scared of cost basis in this race. Off the claim for George Weaver, who's back to having another solid meet up here. And he lost to horses that are inferior to these, but he has back figs that can win the race. And maybe he's better at 6 furlongs than 7 with a race under his belt. Even Payne isn't terrible. I took a shot with the 7 Hoist the Gold because I felt like his race 2 back is good enough to win here, or at least be effective at a very big price. And it's not like that race where he hit the wire with Gunite. And I will agree that Gunite has improved up in Saratoga. But nonetheless, he ran a figure that puts him within hunting distance for sure. He's a 3-year-old, and it's not like that figure came out of nowhere. The reality was he should never have been 30-1 that day, something we pointed out in America's Day at the Races, because he's got back figs that are comparable to it earlier in his career. And if you look at these horses, he's a 3-year-old, and of everybody in this race, he probably has the most right to have improved. So he comes back and he runs in the Amsterdam. Well, okay, he didn't run well, but that race 2 back is good enough. And I just thought he's going to be a huge price in here. I've got a lot of horses open. I can make a case for him, so I put him on top.
Okay, I can make a little case for higher standards if my qualms about elite power are justified. First of all, there's just not a lot of speed in this race, and
he's fast.
He's going to be honored. He's going to be close
well,
to the
isn't
lead.
Foolish Ghost going to go, though?
And, well, I just want somebody who's got tactical speed. Which,
Tom Amoss does not rate speed horses, so you can be confident he'll go.
Right. But he comes out of a solid race. That number was good, and like two horses have come out of there and improved big. I mean, Mexican Wonder Boy
Wildebeest
ran a
winning
figure
here the
of
other day.
103, and so it was good company, and he's just got good overall form. So
No, I don't disagree with you.
That's my backup.
The weirdest horse on the entire card today is the outside horse whose name I'm going to say is Maras. Because this horse is 2 races. I mean, Timeform US gave this horse gigantic figures for what it's worth over there. And I don't know what the story with him. I heard some different stories why he didn't run in the sprint, whatever they call it over there. And I mean, it's not a trainer that wins very often, but this horse could bury this field, Andy.
Yeah, I tried to look up his UAE dope and just couldn't find a recognizable horse in the PP lines. I have no sense of how good he might be, but the workout report gave him a B+ last time, saying the best of the series. August 5th, he flew.
He could be a speed, too.
Yeah.
If he's live, he's probably going to be forward.
I don't know what to do with him.
Is this listed rider still riding him in here? Is the rider who rode him over there, he come all the way over to ride this horse in Saratoga?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's listed unless there was a late change. This is probably the weirdest, most interesting horse on the card today, to be honest. We'll move on to race number 8, back to firsters. I'm gonna take a position in this race, and I see that you agree with me on this. I think Croupi is one of these horses that a lot of people saw him last time flying at the end. And we'll show the race with Arthur's Ride is in there, a horse that I'm using, Rocket Can. We'll get to him. I feel like Croupi, who no doubt about it was flying at the end, and now, he's had a start under his belt. These are just the kind of horses that take way too much money second time and rarely seem to deliver, though he does have the right trainer, I guess.
Yeah, and he, I mean, it says hit gate like there was trouble at the start.
Nonsense.
I thought he was just slow.
He kissed. It was nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I respect Todd. The other thing that I want to say about him is he was part of an entry. And the story was that the other half was the good one. And that horse did no running. So I'm skeptical, and I feel like he's going to be short. Arthur's Ride, I respect. Rocket Can broke slowly in this race, dropped back, made a big move on the turn to contention before faltering. He took a lot of money for a first-time starter from Mott, considering how much the Pletcher entry was bet. And I think Rocket Can is the horse that I want out of that race to run better, more so than Arthur's Ride, who finished ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, he did make that nice middle move, but then it didn't sustain it.
Middle moves are important for debuters.
Yeah.
What about Instant Coffee?
I'm sorry?
What about Instant Coffee?
Well,
they got to groom the paddock.
He's trained by Brad Cox, who never loses.
Brad doesn't have a great record with his first-time starters on dirt. 2-year-olds, especially up here.
Well, he worked in company with Verifying on August 20th.
Who won last week?
Who won with a figure of 85. Now, the comment said he was being urged a little more than verifying. But if he can be an 80, he can be tough. And, Brad Cox just, he wins doing everything, and
I agree. That's terrific.
Whenever I try to throw him out, I usually regret it. So that's a.
I probably should have put the 6 on top in here, but I've guessed with Juan Valdez, a $900,000 2-year-old purchase for West Point and Woodford. We'll get to West Point in a second. If we have time at the end, you can talk about what you think of Flight Line today. It's a half to Constitution, who's a Tappet. He's a half to Jacaranda, I believe, who won her first couple starts, including the Tempted for Mike Hushin. And I'm going to guess that this is a live firster for these connections.
Got very tepid workout comments. But how did he look in that 10 flat work at the
Didn't
sale?
watch it, actually. Forgot to.
Brand.
I forgot to. I have it marked to watch. There's nothing I like better than watching those Gulfstream workouts, At least they didn't run any on the turf this year. All right, we'll see what happens. Race number 8. Race number 9, I thought was another one of the very interesting race in this card. This is a tremendous card today. Mm-hmm. I want to start with Analyze It, who's the 5-2 favorite in the line, and I want to show his last race. And I'm willing to agree that these were good horses he ran against, but he got a supersonic pace. Diaz gave him as perfect a ride as you could give a horse.
Yep.
And I thought he was just awful in defeat. And it was, he could not have gotten a better trip. And he's a horse who obviously at one time is very good. He's had foot issues his whole career. They're finally putting him in for a tag. He can win. He's going to beat me.
Written large on my PPs is no Chad for this.
With this horse, and who else does he have in here? I disagree with you on grade with a curve, a grade on a curve, but we'll get to him.
But no, I agree. That's the kind of horse you're supposed to bet against. After that,
Well, it's hard. I'm going to show another replay before we get to our horse in here, and that's Ocean Atlantique and Eyes on Target. Luis Saez gave Ocean Atlantique a tremendous ride in this race, taking advantage of the lack of pace, and ran well. Eyes on Target, who's had one soft trip after another, got kind of exposed, I thought, a little in this race. There's so much more speed in this race that I don't care what Luis Saez does. It's almost impossible to see Ocean Atlantique on the lead in here, considering the speed that maybe Clear Vision could actually show. Analyze It has to be forward. And you'd think that Mad Money's and Kendrick is going to at least go because it worked for him against weaker. So I just think I don't want those horses.
Fair enough. I thought lots of, even after getting past Analyze It, a lot of these horses look relatively the same, and I just sort of stumbled onto the horse that you probably picked for better reasons than I did.
Here's his Kingston, where he finished second to Ocala Dream, but why don't you tell us why you like him, and I'll say why I like him. You want? Go ahead. No,
I'm sorry.
Why don't you say why you like him, and then I'll go and I'll tell you why I like him. If I disagree.
Sanctuary City has just simply been running against consistently better company. These are N2X allowance horses, and he has run against stakes races and higher grade allowances against legitimate horses. Soldier Rising, who won that allowance race last time, came out of there and got beat a length in the Sword Dancer. 3 races back, Masson, whom he's a length behind, he's a great, he runs in Grade 1 company with good form. So I just, I'm not really a class guy that much, but he's the class of the race.
And he's a horse that just always shows up, just always runs his race. And I also think that less distance is better. And another thing about him is he ran on May 30th. He ran on June 18th. He took a little break and came back 4 weeks later. Then he runs 16 days later, and now he finally gets 5 weeks off. So he's had some time off. He has connections. Jimmy Ferraro, Jimmy Ferraro's not taking money because he's Jimmy Ferraro, yet he's done a great job with this horse. Trevor McCarthy. People look at Trevor and say, oh, he's having a lousy meet. He's actually not. He's been unlucky. He's ridden very well at the meet. It's been tough in this colony, but he rides very well. And last time, he tried to close into a race where most of the running was done forwardly. And you point about Soldier Rising, I agree with, but even more so, even though he was favored in there, I thought the fact that he closed in there was a real feather in his cap. And he proved that when he ran very well last time in the Sword Dancer. I think he makes a ton of sense in here, and he's a horse, if connections didn't matter, could be favored in here. But because they do, he's going to be a better price than he should be. As far as grade on a curve, he had legitimate trouble last time. I mean, another Chad horse, I think, cut him off on the turn, and he just lost all chance. And it was a super slow-paced race, dominated on the front on a very rock-hard course. Do I love him? No. But he's got plenty of figs that are fast enough to win, and he has a massive excuse. And I think at a much better price, he's more likely of the two Chad horses.
I mean, that was legitimate trouble.
Right.
I mean, he got checked out of the race, but you draw a line through that, and he's a New York bred. I mean, running against You're
in New York. Don't knock New York
running
breds.
against kind of
You picked a New York bred.
New York allowance horses.
I agree, but he's run figures fast enough. I mean, he finished a length behind Sanctuary City here last year. It's not as though he hasn't run credible races. And he's a big price.
Okay.
All right, we'll see. Race number 10. I like a horse in race number 10. I smoked this horse out, Warlike Goddess. I mean, she looked as good as Jackie's Warrior did when she won.
Yep.
Another horse winning a graded stake last time without Joel Rosario ever even trying with her. I don't know. She runs against the same cast of characters. How'd she lose today?
Yep. I mean, easy wrapped up wins can sometimes be deceptive. But boy, she certainly looked like there was a lot left in the tank.
I mean, look, she just is a joke how well she runs. I mean, the truth is, she should have won the Breeders' Cup last year. She didn't get the best of trips and rides in there. And she's just been basically flawless since in the last, 7, 8 starts. I mean, she probably should be 9 for 10, with her only loss coming in that mile and 3/16 race at Gulfstream. Got wired. And if you're going to lose with a good horse, it's on the Gulfstream turf course. Yeah. I can't make a case for anybody else. Can you?
No, I'm glad they're giving us a kind of a free space in the.
Was not an easy card. I agree. This one appears at least on paper to be a freebie. And people say, well, Jackie's Warrior got beaten. That would be foolish. Jackie's Warrior met a tougher field than he had met in a long time last week. The Jockey Club Gold Cup. It came up, I thought, a super, super interesting race, and there's a lot of players in here. Let's talk about the Stephen Foster, and then we'll talk about Olympiad's effort last time out as we move on to race number 11, the Jockey Club Gold Cup. We'll take a look at the Foster. Obviously, Olympiad ran better than American Revolution. In my opinion, American Revolution will get better with distance. He gets stronger with distance. It was his second start off a layup. He took a big step forward off of his return race. And I think American Revolution is going to win this race and stamp himself as a very legitimate contender in the Breeders' Cup Classic, especially if you believe that Flightline and Life is Good are going to hook up. I know all the talk is about Epicenter, and justifiably so. I think you're going to see a huge performance from this horse today.
Yeah, the Stephen Foster I would look at as kind of a preview of the Jockey Club Gold Cup, except for the extra furlong. I mean, Olympiad, was one of the controlling speeds in the race, and certainly beat American Revolution fair and square.
No question about it. He was better.
And so the real question is, what happened last time?
Right. I don't know. And you can say, well, he broke a step slow and he chased a little bit too closely to Life is Good. And if you want to be really, stretch yourself, say, well, it was a weird day. It had rained for a while. They had sealed the track. They unsealed it for this race. There was some moisture. So it's possible there were some mitigating circumstances. And I don't have any problem with that. And honestly, I hope he runs a big race. I'm friendly with some of the connections. I'd love to see him win this race, a good horse. And I'd want him to put it behind him. Having said that, I don't know what to do with him because I don't want to take a horse who's favored in a super tough field that ran so poorly last time. And while he may have had, and all those could be legitimate excuses, I don't like to just dismiss bad efforts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it's a legitimate excuse or not to say that he was tactically in a position where he had to chase Life is Good.
Right.
And,
to run as badly as he did, it just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like others weren't relatively
True.
close. And Hot Rod Charlie blew him off the racetrack, too.
Yep.
And he was right there as well. And I'll say something else about him. And obviously, this affects American Revolution as well. If you take the 111 out, while he's a major player in here, he's just another horse that runs 103s to 105s. And
Yep.
he's a very good horse. Now, you can say, well, if you think the 11 is an aberrant number, what does that do for American Revolution? Except American Revolution has run those figures before as a 3-year-old. So it legitimizes Olympiad's effort, but maybe Olympiad's not really the horse overall that he ran that day. And I think that's a fair question.
You know, that's a good point. As a betting proposition, it doesn't really matter to me. You're going to go, I would go too deep in any pick 5 or anything.
I'm
Are you
pounding
standing
American
with-
Revolution.
All right, I respect your.
I'm all in on American
convictions.
Revolution today. I want to talk about the Suburban, and the Suburban is a very interesting fig discussion. Untreated ran well. I don't knock the others because Untreated, who I don't think is very good, and maybe I'll be subject to some abuse in the newsletter soon as well, but he was able to control in the slow pace, and with the presence of tax, any advantage he has is mitigated, and that helps First Captain Dynamic 1. And I do respect and like these horses. The problem I have is they just don't have any figs that are fast enough.
Yeah.
And to ask them to step forward, either or both, in this race against some pretty good horses, I think it's a big ask.
Well, there is one horse who can step forward in here.
Do you disagree with anything I said, though?
No, they're just not good enough.
You and I agree on the same long shot in here.
I mean, I think Keep Me in Mind has a Todd Pletchery look to him. And, you know, last year, you know, as a 3-year-old, he ran as well as a 99. I mean, we figure as a rule of thumb that horses improve like a point or so per month. You know, as
He could have a
until they
108
turn
in him
40.
somewhere.
Yeah, and
he disposed of that field last time off a layoff at a mile and 8 like they were nothing.
and the best comment and rating of the day in the entire workout report, Keep Me in Mind.
Really?
Yep.
No, I'm gonna have a 5-7 box. I should have put him second, to be honest with you. I think he is the single most interesting price horse in this race by a lot.
Yep.
No, I agree. This was a horse who was a good 3-year-old. He wasn't one of the best 3-year-olds, but he was pretty darn good, and I think this is the kind of horse that Todd could do very, very well with. I agree. Race number 12, we're getting closer to the end. Andy's top pick was scratched in here. This is a tricky race. And I'm going to start by showing, because people love big wins, One More Baby's last effort. And One More Baby was one of the 6 wins for Phil Bauer, who just had this incredible meet up here. Claimed from Phil Bauer, I think I forgot to put this stat up, 1 for 16 off the claim from Phil Bauer with a 15-cent ROI. I don't want a horse claim from him.
And I'll say one
And
more.
I respect the trainer who claimed him, but
And I'll say one more thing about One More Baby. He beat one of the worst
Terrible.
fields that's ever been assembled at Saratoga.
No. We've had many worse. Please, don't give us that much credit.
Not a single horse behind him had ever finished in the money in their life. So I think this horse is a throwout.
And he's going to take money because he has a big win here, especially the scratch of the 4. The 4 scratch guys, Andy's picks here are 3, 10, 5, whatever. But the 4 is scratch guys. If we could change those on the screen, I'd appreciate it. Mr. Breadwinner, now your top pick. We'll take a look at his win. I think he's very dangerous in this race. Do you worry, though, he could get involved in a quick pace?
God, I don't know.
It's hard to see the 10 not going, right?
No. But it's not that he has to be loose on the lead. I mean, he ran a legitimate figure of 71 when he was nowhere in the hunt. So, I mean, just from the straight figure standpoint, which I, of course, believe in.
It's good to hear.
He's a...
Your fans are happy to hear that, Andy.
he is a legitimate contender. I mean, he was...
No, I agree. I almost put him on top in here. And it's interesting, he's never been on a dry track for whatever it's worth. I don't really care that much about those things. It's worth pointing out. So I think that Midnight Worker is dangerous in here, a horse that I think I have third. Get the picks back up. But as far as him, I have a stat for Todd Pletcher, which is an astounding stat. First time for a tag on the dirt in Saratoga. He's winning at 36%. I mean, they're horses that are paying around $7. They're not 4 to 5 shots. That's a pretty impressive stat. And specifically, he's 30% with a $1.66 ROI with 215 stars all around. But in Saratoga, when he's dropped, they've won. And he is going to be fast from the outside, but he's a very hard horse to trust, isn't he?
Yeah, you know, he had a troubled trip somewhat. I mean, there was an incident at the first turn that cost him, but after that, he just had no run at all. Well, it was turf. It was horse. Against better.
Not a turf router.
But I don't know. It's a persuasive stat.
It is a stat. As far as patient capital, it's very hard to watch races at Ellis Park. And I understand that we use different angles on our Fox show, on the Saratoga Live and America's Day at the Races shows. But we have a pan shot. So if you're like us, you want to see the pan shot of a race, you can watch it live, you can watch it on replays. Ellis Park, there is nobody that plays the game seriously that doesn't find their angles to be preposterous. And it's very hard to watch races. But this horse had a ridiculous wide trip, and after breaking well, was sort of taken out of the race. It's a horse that can be much more forward, and I think he's very dangerous. I mean, this horse ran a 67 in his debut. There's no reason he can't be better, and I just don't think that Chad Brown would have shipped this horse back to Saratoga if he didn't think he could find a race for him to win. So I've got him on top. I don't love him, but I think.
I guess so. It just seemed strange to see Chad with a horse at Ellis to begin with.
Well, he's got a string in Kentucky.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think this horse is dangerous, and I took him on top. But honestly, I could use any of the 3, 6, and 10. They're the ones that I want in this race. Finally, race number 13 on today's marathon, which we're making it through. It doesn't get any easier in race number 13. I mean, there are a lot of horses that can win here. You've really copped out, though. Joel Rosario and Christophe Clement. Is this your ode to Anthony? You
yes, I felt
cop out with an overbet Joel Christophe horse?
Sitting in this chair, I thought I had to pick Clement.
It's very, very thoughtful of you. I'm sure Anthony appreciates it.
I couldn't find any horse to sink my teeth into in this race.
He can win. I just don't want any part of this horse. On top is a short price, and he can win. And listen, I'm married to a horse in this race, and people can make fun of me because I've liked my Cara Mia Mine a lot. You know, Mitch Freeman drops this horse, but I think an important distinction that we talk about quite often, you have to be careful with New York-bred maiden races, because sometimes maiden 40s are real drops, and sometimes maiden 40s aren't that much easier than maiden specials. And I'm just not sure that he wasn't in a race that was a little easier than last time, and I thought she was disappointing last time. It wasn't a lot of pace in that race. I'm going to hope with a bigger field, we get a little bit of running in this race early. I like my Cara Mia Mine. I thought she ran well enough, 2 back to win here, and I'm going to hope she gets back to it. I don't love her, but her price should be okay.
You know, we see a lot of comments in the PPs that with overstated trouble at the gate, this horse was horse was pinballed.
Yes.
Bam, bam. So
that was legit.
A legit trouble call.
Yeah. As far as others here, I mean, obviously, is a Malibu Moon off the claim for Gary Siaka is dangerous. This horse ran well last time.
He looks okay. I picked him second. I mean, he, lightly raced in form. I mean,
yeah, no, I don't disagree. Eli Dancer, not impossible either. I'm going with my Cara Mia Mine, and he's copping out in the 13th race with an overbet favorite. It's really a sad way to end what otherwise was an exceptional performance by you. Before we go, talk about Flightline a little bit, who's running in the Pacific Classic today.
Well, I love horses like this. I always root for them. When you see horses, like early in their career, run big figures, in the 111 and up, you want to see them go on to greatness, and so I just hope. Well, I mean, we don't know about his mile and a quarter.
Got a pedigree that suggests, I mean, that he's not supposed to have any problem with it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, Country Grammar has run some good races,
Yeah.
so he's not meeting a complete field of bums. He's a legitimate horse. I'm excited to see him run. I think the race is being run. It's like, am I right, 8:50 or something tonight?
Well past my bedtime.
You were up late enough last night. That was right around when you probably were tucked in. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that race as well, and we can watch it well after the race to run here. Well, Andy, thank you so much.
It's been great fun.
You get a gold star for today's performance. We're all honored to have the great Andy Beyer here. And anything else you want to leave us with the figs and everything else? I want to ask you about 2-year-old grass figs, because there's some figs you've been leaving blank. And I talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, it's a situation for which we don't have a good answer, but there are a lot of 2-year-old turf races and maiden races where we don't have any data to make a figure. I mean, sometimes, the field will all be first-time starters or no horses who've run on the turf. But mostly if it's say 5.5
5 furlongs at Belmont, where it's the only race we run, are 2-year-old races.
Right, and so there's nothing to compare it with, and unlike dirt races where, like if you had a lone 5 furlong race and there's a 1 1/8 race or whatever else, we've got our relationships between times at different distances down pat. We'll always have a figure for first-time starter 2-year-olds on the dirt, but the relationships between sprint times and route times on the turf are very fluid, just because of the differing pace scenarios. And if we tried to get creative and improvise a figure, we could easily be wrong by 20 points in either direction.
So more misleading than trying to get it right.
Right. I mean, we always try to get a number in there, and we'll, just as, the missing fig here, I said, well, I'd make it a 93, and I'd be confident with that.
But that's a different situation.
Right. But when you have no dope on the horse, what can we do?
All right. Andy, thanks so much. It was a real pleasure. You? Think of how much fun you've had, how much you've learned from the legendary Andy Beyer. Head over to Naira Bets and reciprocation. If you're not a member, use the promo code TOGA200 and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit. We have a bankroll builder, bet 50 to win on the Jockey Club Gold Cup. You'll not only win if you bet American Revolution, but you'll get $20 towards your bankroll for the Belmont at the Big A, which starts September 15th. And finally, we are on from 12:30 to 5, and then 6 to 7, 5 to 6. NBC will be covering the stakes races, so you can catch all the action one way or another. FS2 for us today. Andy, can't thank you enough. It's great to see you. Great to have you back. And I know a lot of people feel exactly the same way. You even had a couple fans show up. The most unfairly maligned man in the history of horse racing. He's ruined more lives, my own included, with his book Picking Winners and his other books. John Imbrial, another man who's he hasn't ruined any lives. He's the voice of Saratoga, the voice of Naira, John Imbrial. Up next, the reprise of Scratches and Changes. Have a great day.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we ask you to please rise and turn your attention to the winner's circle as Laura Fiorino of Saratoga Springs performs our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes